Hi everyone, this is going to be a brief tutorial video about how to install MDESops onto your local device. Currently I am on the GitLab page for MDESops where we have a breakdown of the tutorial. So it's divided into 4 steps. Step 1 is to clone this respective repository. Step 2 is to install 2 dependencies. Step 3 is to install Poetry, and Step 4 is to run the terminal command to actually install the program. So 3 of these steps are pre-installation, and the last one is the actual installation method. So step 1 is to clone the repository. So we have this command listed here, and we're going to copy and paste that into our respective terminal. And when you're on your terminal, make sure you're in the working directory you want to clone it. So I'm on my desktop currently. So I copy and paste this code and let it run. And right now it's just cloning all the files and data from GitLab. And once this is finished, I'm going to check my desktop and I should see a folder on the bottom left that says DESops. I am going to now CD into it and I will see all these files. The poetry.lock file is going to be how we install this program with Poetry, but that will come later. So now we're going to do step 2, which is installing pkgconfig and Cairo. These are both really important dependencies that DESops relies on, but they have their own separate ways to be installed that doesn't incorporate Poetry. So I'm going to go on the linked website, and it's going to show a bunch of different terminal commands that depend on which operating system you're using. Since I'm using Mac, I'm going to use Homebrew to install both Cairo and pkgconfig. I'm going to copy and paste this terminal command into my terminal, and once this runs, I should have both of these respective dependencies installed, and we will be able to move on to the next step. So once this is installed, I'm going to go back to the GitLab page. We can check off step 2 and now proceed to step 3, which is installing Poetry. So there's many different ways we can install Poetry. I'm going to show 2 separate ways we can do this. The first is using terminal commands based on your respective operating device. Since I'm currently using a Mac, I'm going to show how to use curl in order to install Poetry. Okay, so what we're going to do is once we are in the appropriate folder, we are going to copy and paste the curl command from GitLab and simply just run it in our terminal. And this alone should allow you to properly install Poetry. To double check if this worked correctly, what we can do is in our terminal we can write Poetry space and then 2 dashes and version, and it should output the current version we have of Poetry. Sometimes this may not always work depending on your device, so we're going to show an alternative method using pip to install Poetry. So we're going to use either one of these terminal commands, whichever ones works for your device, and we're going to install Poetry using pip. And once this runs, we should now have Poetry installed onto our device, and then we are now able to go on to the last step, which is installing DESops. So once Poetry is completely installed, we're going to go back to that original DESops folder and make sure you are on the folder that contains poetry.lock. Once you do, all you gotta do is write Poetry install and DESops will then be installed. This is possible because of the poetry.lock file that is in the folder that we cloned from the repository. So when you are running this command, it is so important that you're in the same working directory as this file. It basically lets the computer know which other dependencies we have to install in order for DESops to run effectively. And it looks like we are all done. Thank you so much for your time. A link to the GitLab will be in the description. Thank you.